Hey everyone, Scorpius here. Today's video is an update on my Ice Strike Monk build following up on this video, and this video. This build has evolved into an absolute powerhouse with insane tankiness and incredible damage. I'll be breaking down everything in full detail from ability and support gems to the passive skill tree, gear progression, and the key upgrades you should aim for. Plus, I'm gonna go over some important changes I've made, and at the end of the video, I'm gonna answer some of your most frequently asked questions. So let's start things off with how the build feels in the current Path of Exile 2 meta. Right now, I'd say it's one of the most balanced and stable builds I've ever played. It's not the fastest, but thanks to Ice Strike leaps, it never feels sluggish either. The real standout feature is how insanely tanky it is. With our two Heralds and Wind Dancer, I can literally stand still, like here, and anything that touches me will just explode. I honestly cannot even remember the last time that I died playing this monk. On the damage side, we're looking really strong too. One-tapping almost every pack on fully juiced up maps, as well as easily deleting all bosses. The biggest strength of this build right now is how well-rounded it feels. I can confidently run through maps, one-tapping everything, without worrying about after-death effects, rares, or bosses due to how tanky it is. That said, if there's one thing that I would like to improve, it's the mobility. Whether that means weapon swapping for a blink skill or finding a better ring with a +1 ability slot and then adding blink as an extra ability, that's something I'm gonna look into. Overall, this build is fantastic for breach farming and bossing, but it still has room to grow. More defenses, more damage, and more mobility, all of which will naturally come with higher levels, better gear, unique jewels, and some further optimizations. So, to quickly go over our abilities and their support gems, we have the main protagonist here, which is Ice Strike, with Martial Tempo, Concentrated Effect, Ice Bite, Inspiration, and Heft, in that specific order. If you notice that without Inspiration you can sustain your mana, then replace Inspiration with Rage, which will allow you to add another good crit jewel to maximize your DPS further. We've got Tempest Bell with Close Combat, Cold Exposure, Super Critical, Font of Rage, and Heavy Swing. It would be ideal to have a full link on your bell so you can add Heavy Swing as well, as it gives 35% more physical damage and it's your main ability you're going to be using on the Uber bosses. But if you have Rage on Ice Strike or a Rage Ruby as a jewel, then Font of Rage is more effective early on. Then we have Charged Staff with Conduction, Primal Armament, Overcharge, and Coursing Current as the main four. If you can get a fifth slot, then you can also add Persistence. For Herald of Ice, you want Magnified Effect, Lightning Infusion, Lightning Exposure, and Innervate. If you get a fifth slot, then you can add Cold Mastery. For Herald of Thunder, you want to go Cold Infusion, Glaciation, Long Shot, and Ambush. If you get a fifth slot, then you can add Lightning Mastery. Combat Frenzy should have Profusion and Clarity on it, Grim Feast should have Precision, Ghost Dance goes with Fast Forward, and Wind Dancer should have Unbreakable, Blind, and Calling Strike. Now, with all the abilities and the gems out of the way, let's take a look at my current character sheet so you can understand what we're aiming for. I am currently level 93 with 37 strength and 216 on both dexterity and intelligence. I've got 1 life due to Chaos Inoculation, of course, which is a node in the passive tree, 4,375 energy shield, which will be doubled due to Grim Feast, 247 spirit due to our chest piece, 83% evasion rating, and fully capped on all resistances apart from Chaos, which obviously we're immune to due to Chaos Inoculation. So what all these numbers mean is that we're super tanky at the moment. Can it be better? Yeah, definitely. By getting better gear and using more currency, but the main stat that makes this build shine even more is our crit. Due to the passive tree, our gear, and our chosen jewels that we're going to see later on, we are currently sitting at 46% critical hit chance and 535% extra critical damage bonus. So that 172,000 damage per second that you see on the Ice Strike triples when we're in combat. And to achieve the tankiness and the damage output, we need some good gear. And the gear is something that I completely upgraded since the last video. First thing that we've got here is our new weapon. Its damage goes up to 520 with some extra fire damage. The reason I went for fire damage here is because I want my Tempest Bells to be ignited. So no matter what the number of the fire damage is, it's gonna be enough to trigger ignite on the bell, causing it to deal 20 to 30% more damage, because if you read the bell, it excels with elements. But the main three stats I went for are critical hit chance, critical damage bonus, and attack speed. Next, we've got our new helmet. And the difference here is that the stats are much more specific than the previous one. We focus on energy shield as it's our main survival stat, some rarity which can definitely be upgraded for more later on in the game, 34% critical hit chance, some intelligence, and 27% cold resistance. The chest is another good one and the main source for our extra 147 spirit, which it seems that I have more than I actually needed. So on the chest, I focused on getting as much evasion and energy shield as possible, some intelligence as well, and some extra resistances that I needed. For you guys on the resistances, it can vary depending on what you're sitting on right now. Next, we have the Hand of Wisdom gloves, which is a massive upgrade to this build. It gives some good stats, but the main thing that it does, it gives us attack speed and lightning damage based off our dexterity and intelligence, which is the reason I've been looking for gear with intelligence specifically. Next, we have the Ingenuity Belt, another great unique that does wonders to this and many other builds. The prime modifier we care about here is how high the percentage of the added bonuses is. The higher the percentage, the better the belt, and the more expensive the belt. Moving on, we've got the boots. Here, 35% movement speed is mandatory. Then look for evasion and energy shield, a second prio, and lastly, try capping all of your resistances with your boots as much as possible. Next up, we have the two rings. First one is a breach ring with cold damage, lightning damage, evasion rating for defenses, intelligence for extra damage through our gloves, and of course, more resistance. And the second ring has physical and cold damage, evasion rating once again, some extra rarity, intelligence, and of course, finishing up with our resistances. And lastly, we've got the amulet. On the amulet, I went for as much rarity as possible so I can at least cap the minimum with some extra energy shield and as much crit hit chance and crit damage bonus I could find. You also want to anoint your amulet with Overwhelming Strike as it gives a significant amount of extra crit. Other than the gear, what makes this build insanely strong is our passive skill tree. For the Ascendancy, we obviously go for Invoker as it's the most suited one out of the two for the Ice Strike build. And here we have a lot of very good options to choose from. Right now, I'm still rocking these four options. Lead Me Through Grace, Sunder My Enemies, I Am the Blizzard, and I Am the Thunder. That's also the order that you want to get these in. We go for Lead Me Through Grace because that's our main source of spirit, and without it, we cannot use our auras. Sunder My Enemy is needed because we use a crit build and we want it to negate the enemy resistances as much as possible. I Am the Blizzard and I Am Thunder are there to increase our damage, but there are two more incredible choices that I've tried that work really well. The first alternative is to go I Am the Blizzard into I Shall Rage for Unbound Avatar. This is a brand new ability that you'll get that you'll need to click that increases your damage significantly for a short period of time. Usually this is used for dense breach runs and or boss fights. This is a great option to go for, however the state that I'm in right now with the gear that I have, I don't really need Unbound Avatar for the extra damage as I don't have issues with either bosses or breach runs or anything like that. However, if you do struggle with damage yourself, it's a very good option to go for. The second alternative is to get I Am the Blizzard and Faith is a Choice to get Meditate, which is another new ability you'll need to click, but this one is a full-on defensive. When you click it, your character will channel Meditate and double your current energy shield. If you go for this option, then you want to completely drop Grim Feast from your abilities and replace it with something else like Cast on Shock. The reason you would want to go for Meditate is for the uber bosses in the end game. Grim Feast will be completely useless on the bosses, so Meditate will provide you with that extra layer of survivability. Once again, at my current state and my current endgame progress, I don't really need Meditate, but I'm 100% certain that at some point I might spec into it. The rest of the tree looks something like this. I haven't done any changes to it apart from some jewels that we will look at shortly, but the main idea here is to get a balance between damaging nodes and defensives. We obviously have resonance for the conversion of the power charges, Chaos Inoculation for the Chaos Immunity, and Eternal Youth so that our health pot can recharge our energy shield since we've got 1 life. The rest of the nodes are focused on defenses such as energy shield, evasion rating, and mana, while getting a lot of attack damage, attack speed, and a lot of crit. Something very important though that a lot of people are overlooking are the jewels. You want to invest in good jewels. The ones that you want to get for this build look something like this. You want crit, attack damage, and elemental damage if possible. My current build has a space for 4 jewels at the moment, so you want 3 of those to look like this, and 1 of them to be a ruby with gain 1 rage on melee hit. Other good modifiers to look for in that ruby are things like increased attack damage and increased global physical damage. The reason why we want this 1 ruby here is because we won't need to add the support gem called Rage on our Ice Strike, and instead can use other gems such as Inspiration and Heft. Lastly, as I promised earlier, let's take a look at some of the most frequently asked questions I get and some of the best tips you can get as a newer monk. First question is how to sustain your mana. Without having inspiration on your Ice Strike, this build is insanely mana hungry. So first thing that you should do is add Inspiration Gem on Ice Strike. Just this should solve your problems. But if it doesn't, then getting some extra stats like intelligence and mana regen could really help. However, I doubt that you're gonna have any issues, but if you do, then lowering your Ice Strike level is also a good alternative. Next question is how do I get Spirit? You get 100 Spirit when you go through the campaign by killing the specific side bosses that give you Spirit. The extra Spirit on top of the 100 Spirit that you get through the campaign is obtained by having a chest armor piece with as much evasion rating and energy shield as possible. The higher it is, the more Spirit you will get. The reason why this is happening is through our Ascendancy node called Lead Me Through Grace. Next question is ability levels and quality important? Yes, both ability levels and getting their quality up to 20% using Gem Cutter's Prism is definitely a very good upgrade. You want to level up all of your abilities to the highest level that you possibly can. Once you reach the end game and you've got some extra currency, then investing in level 20 gems should be a priority for this build. Another question that I see a lot is should I use Perfect Jeweler's Orb on my abilities? Luckily for this build to work, it's not mandatory to use your Perfect Jeweler's, however it will definitely help if you use it on Ice Strike and Tempest Bell. And lastly, we've got the biggest one. How to upgrade the build if I don't have currency. Some of the pieces that you saw earlier I personally crafted myself, but the overall cost of the whole gear that you saw before is a little bit over 100 divine. Pretty expensive, right? Well, the more you play the game, the easier it will be to stack up on divines through trading, crafting, converting, or just randomly finding them. If you don't have that much right now, you can follow the earlier version of this build that I have on the channel and get yourself more budget-friendly gear. But the way that you want to upgrade the build on a budget is making a few strategic priorities with your gear. For example, the Hoa gloves usually average around 3 divine. So investing in those first will significantly upgrade your stats. Next, getting a new weapon around 5 divine will last you for a lot longer than anything else and will significantly impact your damage. Then you can focus on a lower percentage ingenuity belt like I did, something like 60% bonus for around 4, 5, 6 divine. Then spend 5 to 6 divine for a better chest so you can get some extra spirit to run all of your auras. And lastly, spend a few divine here and there on all the other pieces. But gloves, weapon, belt, and chest should be your first priorities of investment. If I answered your questions or helped you out in any way with this guide, you can consider supporting the channel by liking this video and subscribing to the channel to stay tuned for more content like this one. If you have any additional questions or feedback you want to share, then make sure that you leave a comment below, and as always, I'm going to reply to each and every one of you. Thank you for the incredible support and for watching this video. Here are 2 more guides that you might enjoy. See you on the next one. Peace.